because I did do work for Clinton.
You're becoming the presidential potter.
Okay, I know, it's so weird. But Evan throws the balls, because he's so much better at throwing now.
Mm-hmm.
I got lazy after the kids were born. I just couldn't put the time in.
So it's a skill you lose?
No, yeah, you have to keep it up, but I can still throw. There's no problem, but just to throw beautifully is another story.
So just to make sure I get this recorded, this is a porcelain bowl that's a little bit harder than leather hard.
Yes.
And Miranda is carving very fluidly the initial design.
So you learn to draw in fluid motion, yeah. Just
Do you have a background in illustration as well?
no, not at all.
Has that been hard for you?
I trained myself totally on pots.
That's
and
astonishing.
looking at pots and understanding. But I started off as doing brushwork.
Mm-hmm.
And so these motions are like calligraphic brush motions. And when you look at old pots, even with scraffito, they have the same motion. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes perfect sense.
So it really helped having that brushwork background before I started carving. So you get a thick and thin line. It's not just a clumpy, heavy line. And so if you look at a lot of the lines on pots, I always look for the beginning and the end of the line.
Sure, and you can distinguish between the two.
And with a lot of these patterns, you just assume it's sort of growing in this direction, so you expect to grow in a sort of, draw it in a growing sort of way, but actually we work backwards, and then it's so easy, because this is what I call a traveling line here. It's actually parallel with the map line. And so when you travel along and keep it as parallel as long as you can, you get what's called a stem. And that's what gives the thing movement. And so you'll see that in a lot of ancient pots, they are working on a 1/4 inch stem a lot of the time. They love that parallel business. It's very stylized, but it gives it so much more strength. And if this was very tapered, I can do some drawings to explain that to you. But they really worked on stems and strength and bones of patterns. It's really interesting.
Well, it's fascinating because there are multiple design elements at play here, both the shape of the vessel itself and then the drawing and then the interaction between the two.
And so if you can, I'd have to show you on another pot, but it actually takes a long time to get all the way around. If you were doing something geometric, it actually takes ages to get to point A all the way around again. Whereas these fluid lines, it's actually really fast to get back to point A. So that was a real jump when man stopped doing geometric patterns and started doing more fluid patterns. So that's really what I'm interested in. Because a lot of them aren't learned, so it was actually like traded patterns. So you can actually trace patterns with trade routes.
It's fantastic. Now, are you going to carve all of this with the quill?
No. I'm going to just draw with a quill because it's got a very slightly tapered thing. It's almost like a bird quill will do the same thing. So you're drawing with a V shape or a rounded V shape. If I was to draw with a flat edge or a rounded edge, the glaze would sit in it. You couldn't get in there.
Okay.
So we draw with that, but then we carve with just a very simple piece of bamboo that we've built up with foam and everything. But you shave off the pith side of the bamboo. You don't touch the hard side, and you get a wonderful cutting edge. This is actually, we've made into I don't know if you can see it, but there's a tiny
notch
in there. So if I was to carve with this, I'd make little teeth pattern.
Oh, yeah.
You see that?
Oh, that's great.
Okay, so this is what the Chinese used a lot as a background. And it's a tiny notch.
Yeah, tiny, but the effect when
and
repeated over...
We make the notch always again with a V file.
Oh, okay.
So if that was just a split. Do you have a nice carving tool around, Jess? Here, so this is the shape. It's almost like the top of a screwdriver with a tiny little point on one side. You should want an edge. And then that carving is a flat carving.
That's amazing.
And you sort of redrawing the line, and we have to think about how the glaze is going to sit. from the piece. So you need to make it work from all directions. And bamboo is softer. It has a hard cutting edge, but it's softer than the metal. Where is the metal edge? Sorry, this is all very messy.
No, I love that your studio is a mess. My office is a disaster. It makes me feel at home.
Well, this table is the heart of the pottery. Just that and the wedging bin. It was just here last night.